today we are going to be looking at what programming is, what coding is in this introduction to code series. So first of all, what will we be learning in this video? First of all, what programming is, what coding is, what is the difference between programming and coding, which is actually better, and then we get to know what pseudocode is, and then we get to answer the question of why do you want to learn coding. So let's jump right into it. What is programming? So programming is actually the logic involved in finding the solution to problems. So in technical terms, it involves giving specific instructions to a computer for it to perform a particular task. Think of it this way: there's a problem on board. Say you want to find the average of maybe a specific amount of numbers, and you don't want to do that you don't want to have to do that manually. That is a problem. So how do you actually how would you tell the computer to do this in a step-by-step format? That is programming. It is just the logic. When you think of the solution in your head, how do I go about this? So you would know that first of all, you're finding the averages to a specific amount of numbers. First of all, you would need to know the numbers themselves. Then you have to tell the computer what the numbers are. Then you actually know to find the average of any amount of numbers, you have to divide the sum of those numbers by the actual amount of the numbers. So the information you're going to be giving the computer, and then the steps the computer will be taking in solving that problem. That is actually what programming is all about. The logic behind solving problems. Giving specific instructions to a computer for it to perform a particular task. So that is essentially what programming is. So let's look at an example of a programming situation. So say you need to find the sum of two numbers, and you want the computer to do that for you. Then first of all, the computer has to know the two numbers involved. Then it should add them, and it should also show the result. So this is a simple Python program. Python is a popular programming language, which we'll be covering in the next video. We'll be covering programming languages in the next video. So first you'd say a equals 5, which is like the first number. Just a is the variable there, and then you're telling the computer that a is 5. Then b equals 10, and then here you're saying that sum is equals a plus b. That's you're doing the operation on both those variables, which are actually numbers, and then you are showing out, you're printing the sum, you're printing the results to the console or whatever. So that's what programming is. It's an example of programming. You know that first of all you have to tell the computer the two numbers, then the computer should add them and show the results. So once you're able to solve this problem in your head, then know that these are the steps the computer has to take to actually solve the problem. Then you have achieved a great feat. You have actually programmed. So what is coding? What is coding? So coding is simply the language used to implement programming logic. That they are closely related. So once you get the logic behind the problem, then you actually implement that logic. Then you used coding to implement the logic. Coding is actually the language or the specific syntax. A programmer would use a particular language. We call it programming language, with specific syntax, that is rules for writing the language. Then the computer can actually interpret this language, because most programming languages nowadays are high-level languages. So I said in the next video we're covering programming language, different types. So most programming languages are high-level languages, and they actually use syntax or grammar that is closer to human readable English, and they have to interpret this language into binary code, ones and zeros, and they actually carry out the instructions within this language. So in the earlier example that we showed, you'll see there a equals 5, b equals 10. That's actually the code. The logic behind this code is actually the programming aspect of it. Then this whole gibberish or something that you're seeing here, a equals 5, b equals 10, this is the code that is implementing that logic. So from here now, I guess you can see the difference between programming and coding. Coding is actually the language or writing out the specific instructions, and programming involves getting the logic behind the problem. So once you've done that, you've let's say coded, then you've successfully programmed the computer. So that's what it's about. Then the difference, what's the actual difference between programming and coding? In the computer world, we tend to kind of like use these two terms interchangeably. In a way, they are actually kind of like the same, yeah, but they are also different. So this is how they're different. So programming involves problem solving using logic, while coding actually involves speaking to the computer with the ascertained logic. So there's a problem on ground, we want to add two numbers. Let's use our example. Then you have gotten the logic behind how you can go about telling the computer to actually do that. First of all, you tell the computer the numbers you want to add, then the computer adds those numbers, you tell the computer to add them, and then you tell the computer to show you the result. That is the logic. Then coding actually involves putting that whole logic into play, like writing it out to the computer using a particular language and whatever, which will be covered in the next video. That is one difference between programming and coding. So another difference is that programming is, I don't want to discourage you guys, but programming is somewhat hard. It takes, there are these times you see people on movies, programmers on movies like typing code really fast. There's a lot of memes I actually see where you see a programmer sweating his head off to actually solve a particular problem. That's what programming is. Actually very hard to ascertain logic. Coding is particularly easy as long as you can master the syntax, the grammar behind the language. Coding is very easy, but finding the logic behind solving problems is actually quite very hard. So also programming requires in-depth problem solving skills. Coding is just like learning any normal language like French, Spanish, blah blah, but solving real life problems is actually different from learning languages. So that's differences between programming and coding there. And then I promise we would introduce a new concept called pseudocode. I think it's really recent, this whole pseudocode thing. This involves kind of like designing your program before you actually implement it, using phrases like phrases in English. So here now you can see the difference on the screen. There's pseudocode, there's actual code. You can see that one with pseudocode is like add two numbers, and then the other one that's showing the actual code for the pseudocode is a plus b. So pseudocode is like an English representation of like the normal syntax you would use to actually program the computer. So pseudocode is pretty useful when you are kind of like planning out your program, planning out the code you are going to write. We'll look at that more later on in this course. So why should you learn more programming? I personally would encourage people to learn more programming than coding, and these are some reasons I have. So the first one is that coding is relatively easy to learn. That means there will be a lot of people actually that want to learn code. They want to know how to code, they want to learn a particular language, they want to know the syntax. But I would advise learning problem solving, how to solve problems using computers, how to build great apps. You want to know how to how to decipher the logic behind those applications, those games, those websites, whatever you want to do. Then you can now go on to learning the syntax or how to calculate implement this code. It becomes very, very easy after you've known how to decipher the logic. Also, problem solving skills are the requirements of any big company. You must also know this, because when an employee knows how to solve problems, the employer would want to keep that person. So that's how it works, and there are many more reasons why I think you should learn more programming. And I think as we go on with this course, I shall delve into more of those. So finally, why? Yes, so before you delve into coding, programming, all of that, you should first of all ask yourself, why am I doing this? So you could be doing this, maybe you want to delve into web development, you want to go into app development, or you're just doing it for fun. So ascertaining or knowing why you're actually learning it gives you this direction or path to follow. When I started out learning programming, coding, blah blah, I didn't really know what I was doing. And that kind of makes you go round and round and round and round, and then back to one specific spot. But when you know exactly why you want to learn the whole stuff, I think it becomes easier. So that's what my suggestion. And if you have any contradicting suggestions to some things I've said in this video, then please do not mind to drop your suggestions in the comment section below. And also, if you're enjoying what I'm giving here on this channel, this is actually my first video, please do drop a subscribe and like this video. And also, I'll be dropping another video, talking about programming language and which programming language you should choose for whatever reason it is you want. And then further ahead in other courses, we'll be looking at different programming language, their syntax, and how to solve problems and implement code using those videos. So thank you very much for sticking around to the end of this video. I'll